Get it going. I'm Joe Dobbin. I'm the head writer at Circle Laughs, and today at Digital Hollywood, we've already discussed going the non-traditional route, going past Hollywood, and in turn goes social media, which is really becoming the new norm. Then we discussed virtual reality, which is, kind of a new technology, especially incorporating it into comedy videos. But right now, we're doing the live section. We're going to be talking about live videos on social media, and we have got a crack expert team panel here. And we'll start with Josh on the end here. We've got Josh McCleary. He's the Senior Vice President and General Manager at Audience Delivers, and boy, do they deliver. Am I right? All right, we got Maddox. Maddox, he's a best-selling author, 40 million views on his Facebook, or viewers on your Facebook channel.
Yep.
Yeah, he's been around forever. He's one of the best. Who do we got? We got Joanne Brown, and she is a writer-director, and she's with D.W. Brown. They run the Baron Brown Studio.
I'm an actress-performer.
Oh, actress-performer.
And we are in an acting school. He's the writer-director.
Ah, there we go. They run the Baron Brown Studio and produce a web series with Jeff Goldblum and Robin Wright. And let's see, then we got Cameron Rice. Cameron Rice is a writer, producer, and host on Geek and Sundry with the Hyper RPGs, Twitch streams, and YouTube content. Thank you. And then we got Ryan Drain. Ryan Drain works at Circle Laughs. So we work a lot together. He heads up a lot of our live program and has been doing that for a long time with an audience, I guess, a reach of 28 million back when you were doing memes and guff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we got some live stuff. Let's take a look at what Circle Laughs does live. Oh, and this was for National Beer Day.
Today is National Beer Day! Ooh, Nate, keeping the streak alive! Oh, they did it again! Another slam for the Beehive!
Okay, now that live video was actually cut into somewhat of a little reel. That is not how quick they go. They are not that fast-paced, and it's just a different medium than doing short-form content, short-form comedy. And let's pass it off to Josh. What makes a great live? And this is on any platform. You can get into Facebook specifically if you please.
Well, so we come more on the data side. So it's very easy to say what makes something funny. And we look more on the data and look at the audience, and that tells us what's funny.
Right.
So by being able to test multiple methodologies, multiple messaging, multiple types of humor, we can then feed that information back to you guys in that case and say, hey, look, this is what's working well. You could sit in a room and decide, we think this is funny, but the market may not like that. And so by using data and large amounts of data and large audience samples, you can make those decisions pretty quickly and say, hey, we have a better idea of what's working. Let's produce more of that. That's what we did for you guys.
Absolutely. And what does work? What do you think works best?
It's funny because it's different across the board, right? So in the case of Circle Laughs, there's a lot of different things that resonate with different audiences. And so when we look at that cross section, there may be things that resonate well with millennials that will never touch with a soccer mom or a middle-aged man. So in terms of what works well online, being able to get the message across in the first 5 seconds is key. Because Facebook and Instagram are our primary platforms. It's the largest content discovery network out there. And video is the primary means with which discovery is done. And that discovery is done silently. So 70% of video is viewed without the audio on Facebook. So it gives you a good idea. If your call to action or your message is 15 seconds in or 20 seconds in, you're never going to catch that consumer, especially if you're trying to convey humor. So you have 3 to 5 seconds. That's about how long it takes somebody to get to their newsfeed to catch their attention. So either overlay text like they do, or pop and catch their attention, get them to turn on the audio, then deliver your message.
And let's see, Drain, coming more from the creator side, what do you see about that? How would you run that first 5 seconds? How do you get people in the door on a live? Is it any different than a short video?
Well, it used to be, I think, that you would set the pace a little bit more, like you would have
do something to kind of get people into it, do something interesting that then you'd kind of, but I think anymore it's just you kind of just jump into the activity. I feel like the more if you just jump into it and you have something that's pretty simple and that people can catch at any point and just be a part of, for just even like 5 minutes, that's just, they want to see it, check it out, and then move on. They can something that they can enter at any point and leave at any point, I think is the most important thing. So I guess just a beginning that showcases what you are doing really well to keep people there.
And Cameron, you're a host, so you know about keeping people on, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I work on the Twitch platform, and for anyone who doesn't know what Twitch is, that originally started off as like a video game, like watch people play video games with a chat room. And in the last couple of years, it's really expanded into like late night talk shows and different kinds of programming. So I run an improv show, and we're looking into doing sketch comedy soon. But what's great about Twitch is that it allows the viewer to tip or like help pay for the show or the programming or subscribe. And so in a way that allows us to tell us what's working is because if at the end of the show, someone goes, here's $500, thanks for the show, we know, well, that worked a lot. They gave us $500 just now. And we also allows our audience, and the upside of Twitch is it allows the audience to participate in the show. So like in the improv sense, we say, if you give us $5, choose a performer, they have to do a character voice. Give us $10, character dies. If you give us 15, give us this. And it allows the audience to be like, hey, you're in the writer's room. You get to dictate what happens in the scene and how it goes. And then we pay the talent into what the audience then divvied up during their scenes or their sketches or their slot. And so that's helped us bring in new talent, try new people because they're getting paid to do improv. Nobody gets paid to do improv now. And it allows the audience to feel like they have a say in what's happening in the show. So I think even off the top, if you say to people, you control this, they stick around.
How do you grow an audience with live? Is that you're going to try and maintain the audience you have, but how do you grow it through live? Like live just came around a couple of years ago, and how do you push it? What do you think of that, Maddox?
Thank you for asking. So there's two ways. First, from an algorithmic perspective, which I'm sure Josh could speak to. I think on Instagram in particular, if you post something and it gets something like 200 live viewers within the first 20 seconds or so, it will bump to the front page. And from that, you can expect to get anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 followers, possibly even more if you already have a large following. So that's one way, just algorithmically. If you have something that's just lightning, it's like Josh was saying, you gotta hook them in the first 3 to 5 seconds. You don't have time to get to the message. You don't have time. I tell people when they show me their things, their videos, their live videos and their live feeds, they have a music intro and then a logo and then a title. I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. We don't have time nobody has time for this. We're in the Vine, we're in the post-Vine era, really, which is like 6 seconds is an eternity online. Yeah. Everybody has stories online, Snap stories and Instagram stories and Facebook stories. And the way to grow your audience now is to produce consistent content that people like to share. Ultimately, it all comes down to the content, and then you have to cross-promote everywhere. I have a fairly significant YouTube audience and a fairly significant web audience for my writing, and then a fairly significant Twitch audience. And the three of them kind of don't know about each other. So I could do a better job of cross-promoting, and I'm trying to, but that's the way to really do that. Because if you have a large audience here, there's no reason why they can't appreciate your work in another medium.
Yeah, no, I was wondering about that. Like when the live's done, because live's over at some point. What do you go straight into cross promotion? Is that the idea, or how do you make it live after the live's done?
Well, it was like Tehran on the previous panel just at the very end. He's like, "Hey guys, follow me on Instagram." It's the way to do it. You really have to. And then you also have to make content that is native to the medium. Like my writing for years, I never put it on YouTube because there was no reason for it to be on YouTube. You have to take advantage of the medium. Like for example, the thing that put me on the map was this piece that I wrote a long time ago called "I Am Better Than Your Kids," where I graded children's artwork, and they're mostly crap. It went super viral, and that was what really got me my book deal and a lot of attention, that sort of thing. However, that doesn't work on YouTube because it's visual. It's just a picture. So what's the medium analog to that? It's kids singing. Then you can hear them and see them perform. So I did the same thing on YouTube, and that's kind of what got my foothold on the YouTube medium. You have to do something that takes advantage of each medium.
That's a good question, because Joanne, I was thinking when it comes to producing webisodes or web series, anything like that, or a digital series, now you've done a live, is that right? Now, you do a lot of lives.
We did a comedy web series, improvisational web series. Each one was like 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and we shot them like once or twice with people like Jeff Goldblum or Jimmy Fallon or Robin Wright, just off the cuff, no preparation, nothing, just boom. So it was sort of live. But then we started doing Facebook Live.
Sure.
And that actually got us much more attention. When I did like a Facebook Live, it got, immediately like 10,000 views. Like right out of the docket or whatever the word is, right out of the door. And I think it was because it was what he's saying, Maddox is saying, because it was immediate, it had no story, even though the things with Robin Wright and Jeff Goldblum and even Jimmy Fallon were really very funny, and Joanne Brown is here. Hopefully, if you see it, you'll laugh. But apparently the attention span and the immediacy factor of just being in my backyard and falling down a hill with my dog was hilarious. And that got many people interested immediately, and that was our Facebook Live. So we started doing Facebook Lives with me falling down in the shower and, middle-aged behavior.
Would you say the approach is different? When you're going into production or pre-production, how do you go for a live as opposed to just a video? Is there anything else when you say you need to get that quick attention? How do you get that?
When you're saying, is it the craft approach with the actors creating it, or you mean getting an audience after?
Yeah, I mean the whole structure of a live, do you find it any different than doing a normal video?
Well, my background and my husband's background is improvisation, but not Second City Groundlings. It's through Sanford Meisner. But Sanford Meisner's Larry David, who did Curb Your Enthusiasm. And so it's very much the script without the written plot, but just the characters. So it's very much like Curb, where you just have a storyline, and people who are trained in this kind of work, like Jeff Goldblum and Tariq Trotter from the Black Thought from the Roots, believe it or not, is somebody who's trained in this. And of course he's a rapper, so he can improvise. And so these people just dig it. They just want to walk out with you, and you say, hey, you're falling in love with Joanne. She's a middle-aged woman. You're a black rapper. Have fun. And so all of a sudden you're necking in the bushes. And so I think that the fun of the spontaneity and the training that people have, and maybe some people aren't trained. I also work with DeStorm Powers and King Botch and people like that. And some people are not trained as actors per se in this, so formally. And I will say that the storyline, tends to be more heavy with people who are really trying to craft a story, and that what DeStorm and King Botch and Hannah and all these people, Janina that I hang with, they just do like an immediate thing. They had me rapping on the street as like a middle-aged Jewish woman against a storm. And that was very, immediate. So I would say that the approach artistically is, hey, we're going to have fun. We're just going to do it off the shoulder. We're not going to be fancy. We're going to take 20 minutes of your time. And my husband just used one camera, no crew, and we made like a series out of it. So I think and as far as promoting and marketing it, I think these gentlemen are more knowledgeable, far more so than that. In fact, they could probably help us with our show to understand promotion and marketing, but we understood the creative aspect. And that's what I think got us connected to people like DeStorm, who said, oh, this is funny, and this is something we can kind of segue into more quick.
Now, that's something I get asked time and time again. Is there any pre-promotion for these things, and how does that work? How do you get it, if there is? Now, you're shaking your head no. And this is for everybody to think, to answer.
Well, so in terms of Facebook, they make it very difficult because you cannot promote a live event while it's happening. You can only promote after the fact. So either you have an existing audience, and so that's where paid media can come into play in terms of building an audience in advance or in anticipation of what you're going to do, so that when you do broadcast, and so we do some level of, hey, this is coming up at this point, watch us here and so we'll do some level of pre-promotion, but you still have to have an existing audience, because if you just broadcast, chances are no one's going to see it unless you already have an audience to view it. And that's the tough thing with Facebook's live platform. We've been talking with them quite a bit about when are you going to allow us to actually start promoting live events when they're happening, because unless you have 1 million followers and you go live, no one's going to see it. You can show it after it's been canned and you can manipulate it and make it look like it's live again, but that's a little bit different than some of the other channels where you can promote. So coming from the paid world, we like to build an audience in advance or in anticipation of what we're going to do. And then when you launch, you have a large audience. And so that's what we do with their live events, and several other client live events, is we build them an audience way in advance of when they're going to start doing live content. So you take the canned content they've been producing, comedy and things like that, using that to hook somebody in, get them to start following them more frequently. So when the live events start happening, you have a large ingrained audience that you can publish to.
It seems like people today like to stumble into things anymore anyways. Like they don't like being like told ahead. They like, oh, when they find something, they get really excited. They're like, oh, what is this? This is neat. How fleshed out is this idea? It seems like that's kind of the thing that people, like the audiences are moving more towards and like looking forward to an event, how things kind of used to be with TV. Anymore, it's just like, they want like that immediate satisfaction of like, oh my God, this is a crazy idea. And they went 110% with it. Like, I feel like that's what live stream is great at.
Well, it's interesting because with Twitch, we are able to promote. So we did about a month or two ago, we did a 48-hour charity stream for the Halo Foundation. And my boss and a couple other people stayed up the most of the 48 hours. So part of the fun of that was to see not just the different things, because we have different segmented shows. We have like RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons, comedy, movie talk show and stuff like that. So the whole 48 hours was going, and just to see how crazy things would get, people being awake as long as they were. The last 2 hours we just played Rock Band, and if you've ever played Rock Band after being awake for 46 hours, you're really bad at it. And then there was tiers, like if a donation got so high, my boss was gonna get an embarrassing tattoo on his back. We didn't make it, but his friend got the tattoo anyway, so that was all broadcasted live. And so doing that, we are then able to also send out tweets and Instagrams and all this other stuff where it's like, this is about to happen in a half hour, come check it out, here's the link. So that is one of the upsides of Twitch, is that as a platform you can continuously say, this is coming up, and also put non-live stuff up there as like commercial breaks and things like that between shows to say, this is coming, this is next, this is tomorrow, make sure you're here.
I can speak to the two different types of live. Well, three if you read the intro to this, live to tape, of course. But we should talk about live in terms of traditional media and television versus live in the internet age, and why it's so important to take advantage of the medium. Again, I'm going to harp on this because there's something that the internet age can do that live television couldn't, which is real-time audience interaction. Mm-hmm. The only time you've ever seen real-time audience interaction before the internet age is political trackers, when they had that little dial on CNN and you could see in real time what people were thinking about the debate. There is no reason why we can't do that today. I'm already working on technology like this right now, so that during live streams, they can tell me how much they like or dislike me in real time, and it's usually disliking. So that's something that can really help engage an audience. Like on Twitch is a great platform. The audience, my audience, are mostly assholes. They're the worst people. So what I found is give them an opportunity to mess with you, and they will mess with you. Mm-hmm. So I give them a jukebox option on my channel. And it's usually for $1, you can play a song. You can request a song. And for $5, you can override whatever song is currently being played. So someone will inevitably play some bullshit-ass 10-hour song, and it's usually birds chirping or crickets or bats squeaking or something that just annoys me. And then someone will interrupt that because I have to set up a queue, and then they'll interrupt that with an even crappier song. And it pisses me off, and it makes everything awful. But that's something that we could never do before on television and a live stream broadcast. So we can take advantage of those opportunities today.
Yeah, we have a show where we get screenplays. So we're doing Batman 66 a month or two ago, and the audience can say, I want so and so to do this as Randy Newman. And they had to read the script as Randy Newman, and they didn't want to do it. And then someone paid $10 more and made them play Jar Jar Binks. And they didn't want to do it, but they paid for it. They had to do it.
There's something very, maybe, out of sync in my mind due to my age, maybe my, classical training as an actress and all that. But when you think of acting, and there's a whole bunch of people like me or Robin Wright or whoever, that has come out of our school, Mariska Hargitay, and the whole concept of this sometimes seems to derail around skill. when I go to the Webby Awards or when I'm dealing with a group of people, recently I went to a thing, we're on Reverie, we're on many different places. Reverie is a transgender lesbian, I'm like an honorary lesbian, I guess. But anyway, these sites sometimes have people, and I will say to someone at an event, what is their skill? And they'll say, they have no skill. They have no particular entertaining ability. They have no facility. They've never trained in anything. They're just them. And they get on and they have a good use of these formats. And it's like the star is the format, not the person. That's a real different head trip for what my orientation is about craft and art and storytelling. And that's probably why my series, which really is funny, but is more like Curb, maybe wasn't as immediately successful as having sort of more silly vignettes that were immediate. But it's an interesting shift from the artistic sensibility of training and craft and skill, because now you can have a super person follow, Gigi, gorgeous and various people, Taylor, that cute little guy, and really all they were doing when I met them is saying, well, what I do is I just get on and I say, be yourself and enjoy life. That's the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, I went to school for so long. I took so many classes. I could have just be yourself, enjoy.
Like, I can speak to that a little bit. It was interesting was when Geek and Sundry's Twitch had started and a couple other companies I know, they had done the thing, which it makes sense, was they hired a lot of YouTube personalities early. They were like, our hosts are going to be YouTube personalities. But the thing about YouTube personalities is not all of them, but a lot of them are like 3-minute quick edited videos. And then they were thrown into these shows where it's like, you have 2 hours. Go. Yeah. And after 15 minutes, they were like, I said everything. I'm used to the quick edit, quick go. And then a lot of these companies found out, oh, we need to actually hire improvisers. We need to hire people who you can throw up there for 2 hours and go. And then after the 2 hours, be like, oh, time flew. And that's something that at the start, a lot of companies were struggling with, and now they're finding, oh, you need to hire like UCB, groundlings, whatever it is, people who can go and go and go and be on camera and know how to play with an audience.
There's an old expression, directing is 90% casting. So that's what you're talking about. You need to get people who can carry the weight. And it's tough to do that, I think, if you're not experiencing an audience. So most comedians will tell you that it takes 4 years, like minimum, to really get your act down. So these YouTube, the live guys, if they don't have like genius, are probably going to be flash in the pan, I'm afraid.
It's like stand-up comedy with the lights on. You see when people do not like the jokes you're telling, because you can respond in real time. You know, if you're doing a live event on Facebook, you can get a ton of hate all at once. And not only are they thumbing you down or giving you a hate face, they can comment. And if you don't have good moderators, those comments, because they don't actually ever really go away, as people will find out. And so it's really interesting. It gives you a real-time litmus test of whether or not you're even on point with who you're trying to reach.
And then we were talking about hosts and everything, and there's a lot of lives that do well with no host whatsoever. It's just an idea executed well. Let's take a look at that Super Deluxe Live. All right, so the idea here is they did a who's going to win, tortoise or hare, and it ran for over how many hours? Went for over 2 hours, and this thing racked up 3 million views. Now, when you're Super Deluxe, you might have a view, but how do you do this? What is the magic here? Why do these do so well?
It's visual imagery.
Anticipation and no payout. I mean, how many of you watched the giraffe being born? Did anybody here?
I watched them try and do it a million times, and then it finally
you just
happened.
got tired, like, God, and you still check because there's anticipation. There's a payoff, and you may have missed it.
It's just so visual. I mean, certain things, like, when BuzzFeed would pop the watermelon, or like, I guess even more like when they would do the little smoke bubbles and stuff. It's nothing but just hands and bubbles coming up filled with smoke. It's just so visual. I mean, even like I think we have to talk about her, but Chewbacca Mom, like kind of the queen of live streams, she was extremely visual. She had the Chewbacca mask on, kept opening it. I mean, it was just delightful to anyone watching. So I feel like part of it is spectacle as much as it is fun people in front of cameras.
Well, it's an easy thing, and this is where I think a lot of video gaming on Twitch kind of took off, is that we found on certain channels, analytics showed that a majority of people watching certain Twitch channels were middle-aged white males who are probably in programming of some kind or data analysis. And so, frankly, like something like that, it's very easy to put in the top of your window as you're doing your work, and you can look up in the corner. Same with video gaming. It's very easy to kind of just like pop up in the corner while you're working. And that's where that kind of live thing, I think, really does pop in a big way.
I didn't quite get Twitch. I was as a lifelong gamer for the longest time. I didn't understand Twitch until one day they had a competition show called Awesome Games Done Quick, and excuse me, and it was like a 72-hour live stream or something like that as a charity event for Doctors Without Borders. And I tuned in, and there was a Ninja Gaiden relay race going on. Ninja Gaiden is an old school Nintendo game where nobody really plays it anymore. It's very difficult, so it's kind of a challenge to run through it. And they were doing a speed run of this game. The announcer, you could tell, was good at the game, but not good enough to compete. So there was a little bit of shade being thrown, and he was calling the shots, and he called it like a professional sports announcer. He said, okay, Ryu Hayabusa is running across the stage. He has to jump on the crow. He has to bounce off the crow and catch the tip of the ladder. And if he doesn't, he'll fall in the pit, and that's a 15-second penalty when the game restarts. And then the audience gets quiet as you see the little ninja run across the stage, jumps, bounces off the crow, hits the ladder, and then you hear a smattering of applause. And at that moment, I was like, I get it. I'm all in. I'm 100% in on this. This is amazing, and because it's a whole different subculture, and it's people who care so much about this tiny little thing. It's kind of like King of Kong every day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is this all about just more so the youth? When you say middle-aged programmers, that got my my ear. But is it more really about the the millennials, the future, the young? Because I just am trying to imagine people who aren't actors or artists like me that I meet in the grocery store in Brentwood, and I just don't know if they would be on Twitch or doing these things. Like when you say the diagnostic of who's your audience is so critical. Is everybody young mostly?
No, actually. I mean, in a lot of cases, it's almost like a camel, right? There's a young audience, and then there's an older audience. And they engage with the content in different ways. So the young audience, it's an attention span thing, right? So they're boom, 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 boom. And they grew up, millennials grew up with technology at the get-go. So it was very easy to be bombarded constantly with different things. So you're conditioned to not pay attention to things or to be able to absorb a lot of things at once. Where I think let's say, I don't want to say middle-aged and hurt anyone's feelings, but they're engaging with content in a different way. And so where it's almost like discovery and, hey, this is really cool, this is great, I can now watch something. You'll find them so when we track engagement rates, we're looking at that audience will watch something for 20 minutes. So they're literally treating it like linear programming and watching the next thing that comes up, and the next thing comes up. Whereas a millennial, we could see them bounce and pop between content, either between channels or even within the same network. So it's literally conditioned for different types of consumption, at least the way we look at it. And again, we're just looking at it from data, and we're not the content producer, we're the distributor. Whereas content producers are looking at it a different way and engaging with audiences different, and realizing that, absolutely right, you can't, you either produce it for one group or you're producing it and realizing that, hey, other groups might jump onto it, but not for the same reasons.
So we often talk about engaging that audience, and how do you do that? How do you do it through social media? Or through lives? What's the best way to get that engaged audience? Like you said, if you get 200 people, it jumps to the front page, and you're going to attract more people. How do you get it there? And say it starts declining. Say you get that that bump at first, and then it starts going down. Is there any saving it? Is there anything you can do? Do you just power through and do the next one? What's the idea?
Harley Morenstein is the creator of Epic Mealtime, and he wrote a post recently that's just brilliant. He says that everybody is one video away from changing their lives. That's what he did when he created Epic Mealtime. It was that one video that went viral. That was what put him on the map. And then you have to continue that process. So if you get that dip, you have to find that magic sauce again and get them. And for engagement, it's as simple as asking them a question. especially a provocative question. And it has to be authentic. Don't bullshit your audience. It has to come from a real place. If you actually want to know the answer to a question, ask your audience, and everyone will weigh in. I do a weekly podcast that's debate-based. So every week I'm asking the audience a question. Is it okay to punch a Nazi? Everybody has an opinion on that. And they're going to weigh in. One of my posts, the post that I did that had among the highest engagement I've had. I didn't even have time to read all the comments. There were so many. Everybody had, and then people are fighting with each other. It's terrible. But that's one way. And then I want to say Super Deluxe recently did a live feed where I think it was Super Deluxe where there's this video. There's this lady who does these videos where she's on her side with her ass completely exposed, and she draws lipstick on her ass and then kind of talks out of her ass. And she did a live stream, and I thought this was brilliant because they had a phone number, and you could call in, and she would talk to the people calling in, and you could ask questions. I never engage in live content. I was engaging. I asked her, I said, do you like to eat chili? I just thought it would be, I really wanted to know. And that's a really great way to engage with your audience.
And is engagement the same on Twitter or on Twitch as it is on Facebook? What's the difference between those kind of audiences?
Depending on the show, we do. There's certain shows where it's like we have like polls, like the movie discussion show. People will be like, "Are you excited about this movie? You're gonna rent this movie, or is this movie a piece of shit?" And that's simple engagement. But we also had for the 48-hour stream, we had a dunk tank in the back, and if the chat donated $20, they got to choose who threw the ball at the dunk tank. So it's very stunty, but it keeps people watching. People will stay if they think they can dictate what happens within the programming. I mean, that's huge. Everyone thinks they have a great show idea, so if you can sit there and say, oh, you get to literally change what happens, whether it be a dunk tank, an RPG, a discussion, improv, people will stick around, and then the hope is that they'll tell one other person, oh, I got to do this thing, because with Twitch you can take clips from Twitch and say, I did this, I dictated this happened because of me, and then it grows from there.
I love that you guys go 48 hours because that people love to watch mistakes in live streams. I feel like that's their favorite time. And during 48 hours, you cannot go and not something go wrong. I feel like because that's a lot of times that's when I feel like things really start to go well is when everything falls apart during a live stream.
You'll get the most slap-happy Dungeons and Dragons game you've ever seen in your life. The Predator will show up. He's not supposed to be there, but he'll be there when you've been up for that long.
I'm just curious because as everything you're talking about is the woman with the lips on her tush and, whatever else you're talking about. They're all very entertainment, quirky, stunty, a little, startling, shocking, out there. How do you guys view something that you would give an example of that is live like this, that isn't just sort of a topical entreaty to people to participate in, water cooler, wow, this is fun, but something artistic, something that is actually has some craft in it and some story to it versus an event, an oddity, or a shocker. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where's the craft in it, or is there no craft in it? This is just a wild ride.
There was a site that I forget what did, but they did can this old man make it to across the room without the phone ringing?
What's the story?
And so but it was every time he get close to the phone, if the phone rang, you'd have to go back to his chair. Can he make it across the room? And it's that was the whole. So there was a little bit of a story there, I guess, even though it's completely ridiculous. It's can the old man make it across the room? But it was I feel like that drama pulled people in. So it's getting weird, performance arty, but it works sometimes, I guess.
And there are on Twitch, there's a lot of famous, if anyone is aware of Twitch, RPG-based shows, whether they be Dungeons and Dragons. My company has a Vanquished show, and that is 5 people doing storylines, and there's not that quick 5-second pull you in kind of thing, but the audience is watching live and can donate to dictate certain moves and things like that. But it is a 2 to 3 hour story that just goes, and we're on episode I think 10 or 11 of Vanquished, and it's already up to for Twitch, does this big, 800-900 viewers per show, let alone rewatches. So that kind of thing, you grow an audience over time, and they feel oh, I'm on episode 12. Let me go back and watch the episodes I missed to catch up to the storyline. And then as far as artistry, there are Twitch streamers out there who draw, who are like, come watch, I'm going to do this thing and you're going to watch me draw and do this art, which is a kind of a Bob Rossian quality to it. So that's a very different live thing than lipstick or the race and stuff like that. But I think that's kind of the interesting thing about live programming is like, even though those things aren't comedy, that's other, if you don't want stunt-based, you can find whatever you want on those kinds of platforms.
There's also the element of things going wrong.
Yeah.
Which, by show of hands, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I love seeing performers break on stage. When Stephen Colbert or on Saturday Night Live, if they can't contain their laughter, if they break, it's one of my favorite things. I love seeing, a couple of years ago, there was the Peter Pan Live that was on TV with
Allison Williams.
Allison Williams, that's right. In my opinion, total shit show and one of my favorite things I've ever seen. I couldn't stop watching it. There's clips on YouTube. I highly recommend everyone check this out after the panel. There's Christopher Walken visibly forgetting his lines, and it's one of the best things I've ever seen. I love seeing things go wrong, and that happens on Twitch all the time, especially when people are not professional performers, and when they're not prepared, when they don't have prepared material.
I want to Chewbacca mom. She couldn't control her laughter in that.
Yeah.
She was really trying to,
was
but every time the
genuine.
mouth would open, she would lose it again. People just loved to see her not being able to get her shit together.
But this is all an extension of reality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all like Kardashian, sex tape, go into Watch Me Shop, and I'm a branding expert and I've got a good figure, and it just kind of evolves into this life. We're watching, it's not only live, it's life.
A lot of I feel like what story has become nowadays is BuzzFeed does it well, where you become invested in these people that work at the company and their lifestyle of the company. You get to
Right.
see the behind the scenes stuff, and that's the kind of stuff people want to see. They're like, oh, I know that person. That person's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you fall in love with the host. You want to see if the new Star Wars trailer comes out, I want to see what this host has to say about this thing. That's the thing about live too, is then not only are you seeing what that host is saying, you can then tell the host you agree or disagree with them, and then they have to go, oh, okay, and have a conversation with you online about it.
And what I noticed in working with Distorm and Janina and these people and King Botch and your life, but I've just gotten to know you, you're so interesting, that people are giving their lives in a way that, I always think like Meryl Streep and I think like my orientation. But the amount of hours that I wait in a park for Distorm and then shoot something and then he's editing it and then he's got the next person coming and the next. And then I say, how many times a week do you do this? And they're like, every minute of every day. I'm either editing or shooting. Even though I don't recognize it as the craft of certain things, the commitment and amount of work to make the momentum for it to hit and engage people and constantly turn out product is more work than I've ever seen anybody do, honestly, in my life as an actor.
You kind of have to be a jack of all trades nowadays. It's just the truth. Just to be in this field, you have to know how to do a lot of things. Be in front of camera, be behind the camera. That's where you're going to have your most success, I think.
Yeah, I was just telling a friend today, talent is not enough today. It's not enough to be a great artist. It's not enough to be a great singer. It's not enough to be a great game player. You have to market yourself, and you have to know how the internet works, and you have to know how the algorithms work. It sucks, but you do. You have to look at the numbers. I stare at my numbers, my analytics, constantly. I look at my retention rate constantly to see where people are dropping off. That's where I made a mistake. That's where I need to do better. You constantly have to work on that stuff. And well, that was it. I forgot my other point. My other point.
Also,
There's a shit show for you.
I don't think the importance of packaging can be understated.
But you're live.
Packaging is just so important. You need to know the numbers and all that stuff, but you need to know how to package it in a way where it's relatable to people. You need the thumbnail, someone was saying it earlier, but it's just so important. All those.
Oh, hashtags, you would never think 5 years ago hashtags would have mattered. They matter. If you look up why didn't that hit, but this hit? Oh, I used movie instead of film. I used this instead of that. It sounds nitpicky. That shit matters, especially on on YouTube or anything like that. If you want to get people's attention, hashtags matter, and that stuff you got to study. It's true. You can't just be a talent. You can't just be a host. You got to be also a producer on the show and know how to get people there and book it and talk about it and all these other things. There's so many factors.
Oh, here's what I was going to say. A point off of what Joanne was saying earlier about the amount of work that goes into this. So when you see people playing video games online and making hundreds or thousands of dollars per hour, you think, wow, that's the life, man. I want to do that. It's like the ultimate slacker idiot dream to play video games and get paid for it, right? And that's what I thought. I was like, oh man, I'm already playing video games. I might as well turn on the camera and get paid for it, right? Wrong. It's work. It's a lot of work, and you don't enjoy it as much because you constantly have to engage with your fans. Sometimes after doing a 2-3 hour stream, I get exhausted and I turn off the stream and I continue playing the game because I just want to play for myself. I don't want to engage with the fans. I don't want to, and you can tell there's a big difference between someone who's good at what they do and streaming, especially because they have to engage with the audience, versus someone who is just playing a video game. There's a huge difference, a world of difference. One's entertaining, one is not.
Now, this all might sound overwhelming, but anyone who's ever interested in this stuff, the good thing, too, about the internet being so niche-based, I have one of the shows I host is a wrestling show. I don't know if anyone here's a wrestling fan. That's not anything any network was ever going to pick up. But on Twitch, you can have 200 to 300 viewers, and then you put it up on YouTube, and it only has like 100 to 200 viewers. People go, that's not much. It's enough to get sponsored. It's enough to make people go, oh, you have this many viewers in this parts of the country or this parts of the world? Yeah, we'll pay for your show. And so that's kind of the upside of the internet now, especially in live programming. You can come up with a weird niche little thing, and if you get just the right amount for a sponsor to go, that's enough for me, great, you've just paid for your content.
That is kind of my next question before we open it up to anybody else with questions, is just sponsors. That's the end game here for a lot of people. How do you do it? How do you bridge the gap between a successful live and getting money for it?
I spend that money. So,
Yeah.
so for us, again, we're delivering that audience that ends up getting you the sponsorships. So more often than not, a lot of content producers are now realizing, hey, what I would have spent on a polished piece to put out into marketing channels, as we touched on earlier, the fourth wall content is just as valuable, if not more, because it's more authentic to the consumer. It's like, hey, I'm seeing behind the scenes and how this is made. I will take that and build the audience from that, build a large enough group, and now you can get the sponsorship dollars that I turn around and spend to get you that larger audience that you need. So it feeds on itself, but that's kind of as far as how you get the sponsorships, it's a numbers game, right? I mean, the only thing they're going to sponsor is numbers. That's all they care about is how many people can you bring.
I kind of feel like, it's about if you can make a good enough piece of work, people will come to you. I kind of feel like that's how you get the sponsors. You just make something good and just have fun, believe in it, and then they'll come to you if it's good enough. I don't know if that's exactly right, but that's kind of...
You would wish it's a field of dreams, and it's not.
Yeah.
You don't build it and they just come. You have to market things yourself. And again, if you don't have those dollars to spend on media, then you're having to learn how the algorithms work, how to use those different channels to drive people organically yourself, because not everyone has $10,000 to push a piece of content or a $100,000 a month budget to push out their content and audience growth. So you use but the thing is that with social media, it's somewhat of a level playing field. It allows that individual content producer to gain the same level of access that a large brand does. You just don't have the media dollars, but you can still reach those audiences very effectively just knowing how the tools work. Just learning the tools takes a long time.
Yes.
I found there's 4 ways to monetize your content. The first is sponsorship, obviously. The second is merchandise. The third is direct donations. And the fourth is during live stream when you don't have any control over the sponsorship. It's just like mid-rolls and ad rolls and that sort of thing. And premium sales, direct sales. So if people like you, you can sell them premium content, and that's something that people will definitely pay for. Your audience will pay for it to consume. So for example, on my podcast, I have the weekly podcast, and then I do one bonus show per month, and that is a premium show that people pay for. And that's a great way to monetize your show. Because advertising all comes down to the following, right? It's a numbers game, right? You have 1 million viewers who come to your page. And by the way, if you get a video with millions of views, it's surprising. It always surprises people when I tell them what the conversion rate is. And the conversion rate is the percentage of people who go from clicking through your advertisement to buying something, right? And I sometimes experiment with my own stuff, with my own online store, buy my t-shirt. The average conversion rate is less than 0.5%. So if you're getting 1 million views, you might get 20 sales out of that. And that's across the board for anything. So if you're advertising something for another company like AT&T or Taco Bell or T-Mobile, why should you send that 1% to them? Why don't you just sell your own product? They're already coming to you because they like you. Why not sell them more of you? That's a great way to monetize. That's what I found most successful for me.
And also cross-platforming, like when we were doing Twitch, because a lot of people, frankly, just a lot of people do not know what Twitch is, or those that do think it's just video games. Once we started going into YouTube content and we started doing, it wasn't live, but like shorter videos, snappier videos, stuff that wouldn't work live, that's when sponsors started coming to us and saying, oh, we love what you guys are doing over here. It's interesting, blah, 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 blah. And then we'd say, oh, well, here's Twitch, and here's how many subscribers we have on our Twitch platform. The minute we shared that, they were immediately like, oh, here's sponsorship. Here, do you want to wear these shirts? Do you want to do this, this, and this, and this? They were not aware of us on Twitch until we went into YouTube content. So it's the thing about being able to cross-platform and cross-market, that if you have a large subscriber base in this one thing, you can maybe open yourself up to this other thing that a few people catch on to, and you can say, oh, but check out this thing. And if they're someone who's willing to sponsor you, that's huge. That's great. You can immediately go, I have this fan base already in this thing you didn't know about.
Does anybody have any questions? We're opening it up.
Perfect.
Perfect. Drain, you got an answer for that?
We did it all.
All right. Well, then thank you for the pin.
Oh, we did.
Oh, there we go. Oh, wait, Melee, let's go.
What do you think? What has been your favorite Facebook Live that you've done? What's your most successful?
Okay, so the question was, what was my favorite Facebook Live and what's been the most successful? I've experimented a little bit more with YouTube. The most successful by far was the election night coverage. By the way, that was my first ever live stream on YouTube, and I wasn't super prepared, but it turned out when I looked around later, I was way more prepared than most people. And that was a 9-hour live stream. And I didn't intend for it to be, but the night was crazy, as a lot of you know. And people kept pouring in, and thankfully I had guests coming over at my place so I could take bathroom breaks. And the interesting thing about YouTube is it allows you to play a 30-second ad whenever you want. So you can click an ad. I'll say, all right, guys, I'll be right back. Hit the ad, take a leak, come back, boom. We're doing this, and it seems like it's completely seamless. Yeah. Can I choose my own ads? Unfortunately not, unless I'm playing something of my own. But no, it's just, you just hit a button and it's completely algorithmic. Because that's actually something that YouTube has gotten into a lot of trouble recently, because some of their advertising content has appeared on racist content, racist videos, and that's something that they're really trying hard to avoid. So they especially want you to not ever pick the ads that you're playing.
But you can dictate what ads you don't want. But it's by industry, right? So you can say, I don't want CPG goods. I don't want candy bars. So you can pick by industry, but you can't specifically say, I don't want more Nazi ads on my site. Yeah. So you can't be very specific, but you can go. Facebook's allowing you. Facebook is now jumping into that realm, by the way, with their videos. So of course they're giving it to high-level publishers first, but they're now running pre-roll ads. So they run it at the 10 or 11-second mark, where similar to where YouTube, it's pre-rolled. So it's 5 seconds, and then you're waiting for that 5 seconds where you can skip. Facebook makes you get into it 11 seconds, pause, watch 15 to 30 seconds, and then the content continues. But they're giving you a lot more control over what you can and can't, or who you want to advertise.
Oh, that's great.
Me personally, what I do with, anyone? I have experimented with taking my YouTube content and putting it on Facebook, and it doesn't perform as well on Facebook. And I think it's because it wasn't native Facebook content. Native Facebook content always, you make a platform, you make content for the platform, and it will always do better. I will take Facebook status updates that get hundreds of thousands of likes and engagement on Facebook, put the same exact status on Twitter, nothing. And then vice versa. For some reason, if you think of the platform and you think of the audience and you think of how they're going to interact with your content, it always does better in their native platform. Now, that's not, there's exceptions to that rule, but that's been my experience.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've taken just content straight from my YouTube channel, put it on Facebook, didn't perform as well. It may also be that it's not new. People know that it's not new. They're not going to be as engaged. They're not going to share it as much.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're pointing content off Facebook to another location, it's not as compelling. When he says native, it means you've loaded the content directly into Facebook, into its platform. And so the big difference with content discovery on Facebook is that it auto-plays. So when you're scrolling through and you see video that's actually playing, that's native content inside Facebook's platform. And so that alone is a huge factor, is the fact that it's already playing, right? And so, and it's when Facebook moved to that platform. So before Facebook got into the video space, 60% of YouTube's content came from Facebook. The user base came from Facebook. Once they got into the video space and did their own native ads, it dropped off, precipitously. And so that's the big difference. And then you can promote that content as well. So if you're doing native ads, so in our case, or in any case, you can either boost it if you're just doing it on the low level, running $5, $10, or the way we treat content is like an ad. So we'll take that same piece of content, and so in case of some circuit content, we'll run 15, 20 variations of the same piece of content so the audience can tell us what's compelling and what's going to convert. And so we can measure that, and the system optimizes automatically. In our case, our system optimizes for consumption. So it will change the messaging based on the audience to get more people to consume it. So it may see that, hey, millennials are engaging in this content at a higher rate. It's moving the ad dollars and the messaging to what was getting them to convert and serving less of that content to soccer moms.
That's how Upworthy became the juggernaut that it is A/B testing, and it costs you nothing to A/B test. If you have two small pages, post the same exact content with two different thumbnails, see which one has higher engagement, and then go with the one that had the higher engagement. That's the one that will always perform better. It's really easy to do.
Oh, right here.
YouTube versus Facebook.
If you have a Twitch subscription, you can stream your videos on your own platform. So yeah, users can stream videos. As far as like users sending us videos for our company, we've never tried that before. I don't know. Like I don't know if you could like just straight out send a video, but if you like start your own Twitch channel, you can. They've started working into upload, so you can upload your own videos if you wanted to, and it's a fresh market. Might not be the worst thing for people to try.
Right back here.
Do you want?
Yeah, I'll let you go.
So podcasting particularly. So how do you get the views? Right? You keep doing it. It's a passion project for you, obviously. That's the first and most important reason to do something is if you like to do it. But second, how do you grow that audience? Podcasts are notoriously difficult to share. No one wants to listen to an hour of bullshit. Like no one, you can't. No one. When's the last time anyone received a podcast link? Like, oh, hey, you got to listen to this hour. No, that's not how.
It's been a while.
Yeah, no one shares content like that. However, if you take a minute or two from your content, your best content, and put that on YouTube or make it in a very compelling way, like, for example, animation. I started experimenting with that with my own podcast. No one shares an hour-long video or audio stream, but they will share a 2-minute video that's a funny moment from the podcast. And I experimented with that, and I went from, I got something like 80,000 views in a week for a clip from my podcast, which is essentially an advertisement for my podcast. That's one way to do it if you're really interested in growing your audience. Otherwise, over time, you will grow with persistence.
Yeah, I think the major thing when you're talking about do you change things up or anything, I think what we have found is we always hit up our hosts to make sure they're sharing, that they're tweeting that they're doing the show. Because even if you have a fan base that knows you're on 9 o'clock on Thursdays, whatever, still tweet it out. We have found that when hosts don't tweet, when hosts don't Instagram or say we're here, the numbers drop a bit. People forget. People's lives are busy. So make sure you're consistently interacting with your audience. We also found that it sounds silly and pandery, but if you have a video show and you can do movements and stuff that can be GIFed, that grows an audience. If an audience wants to clip you and GIF you, that's huge. That helped Geek and Sundry in a big bad way in the beginning. And beyond that, I think you have to be authentic. The internet audience, but especially the Twitch audience, knows when someone's pandering in a big bad way. Especially if you're up there for an hour or two, eventually you're going to run out of bullshit to say. But if you're saying everything you believe and you believe it wholeheartedly, people can get more into that. For myself, For my channel, I was considered kind of an asshole because I didn't like a lot of movies that were coming out, and people let me know about it on YouTube and everything for a while. But I continued to be myself, and soon enough, people are like, I like that guy. He tells it like it is. He's not gonna. He's just gonna say it. He's gonna say what he likes and doesn't like. So it takes time. It takes time. It takes energy, and making sure you're tweeting it out. You're being your own marketer. And if you have other co-hosts, make sure they're tweeting it out. Make sure they're tweeting it out in the morning. Hey, this is happening tonight. And right before you're about to go live, go, hey, we're going up. Please tune in. And also, because you are on Twitch, interact with the audience. Even if it's only 5, 6, 7 viewers, anything little like that, interact with the audience. The worst thing you can do is be a Twitch person who does not talk to that chat. They will turn on you quick.
All
Cats
right.
and pizza help too. Lots of cats and pizza.
We've got time for one more question, and we'll go right here.
Yes? I think that, you know, we have a school that is, you know, it's not hundreds of thousands, but it's very substantial over a 30, 40-year period, and it has a lot of highly identifiable celebrities associated with it. And I think that we have a certain identifiability with these people, and they have friends and other friends. So the one thing that I was saying to Maddox is, I mean, we're almost like outsiders on this panel. We were originally on, you know, we don't need no stinking Hollywood, because that's what we're really about. We don't need no stinking Hollywood because we can like make Hollywood ourselves from the celebrities and the artists that we work with and creating things and having skills and just getting a camera. It's not the quality of the production, it's what you're capturing. But I would say that the way that we've been able to do it is this way that Maddox and everybody seems to do it, which is you just have to like be animal. It's a job. It's 24/7. It's not really the quality of just having a great thing that catches on. It's constantly connecting to people through Twitter and through, Instagram and through emails and all your contacts in your Facebook and everyone you ever met, and constantly telling everybody about your show. And it's really just a 24/7 thing that grows you. And if there's some quality or some oddity or some lips on your butt or whatever it is that makes people, get off.
And if you want the authenticity that he's talking about, it's like any artist, anybody wants an audience. If you're nonfiction, George Orwell said, "I wrote the books I couldn't find in the library." Is what would you want to see? I think that's, you got to go with what would entertain me.
And then you got to reach out to every single living, breathing person on the planet and make that a job to watch what this thing is. Because that's really, I think, the way everybody starts, right? When I say to Distorm, how did you become this way, or King Botch, or any of these people, they say, I just did it morning, noon, and night. And I think that's a whole other mentality than going to a set and acting in a movie and going home and having time with your family. It's like it never turns off. This world. That's what I'm getting. It never turns off.
All right, so that's our live panel. I thank you very much. Let's thank our panelists.